Well, hello and thank you for tuning in to Truth TV News. I'm Vincent Rhodes, your host. And as you can see, I'm out here at the amusement park, Six Flags over Mid-America. And I'm actually doing a kind of like an outing with the family, and I'm waiting on my son and his friends to get off the ride. So, I'm not going to take any chances myself. Anyway, I want to talk to you about the magical world of the occultists who formed our universe. Isaac Newton, I'm talking about Galileo, and I'm talking about Kepler and the rest. And there's another guy named Ty Brahe. I think that we need to talk about him as well. But all of these men were men who we believe were men of science.
Founding scientists who practice magic. Although Galileo is quoted as saying that where senses fail us, reason must step in, he also made astrological charts for rich people. Throughout history, scientific geniuses such as Galileo to Newton have often believed in completely fantastical things, from astrology to alchemy to straight-up magic. Yet some of these bizarre ideas seem very valid to them at the time. We have the benefit of hindsight today, which gives us an advantage over these geniuses. But that doesn't make their beliefs seem less weird. Let's take a look. Galileo believed astrology changed everything. Galileo, 1564 to 1642, is held up as the paragon of rationality. He advocated heliocentrism, the idea that the sun, not the earth, was the center of the solar system, fought an anti-heliocentric church at great risk, and greatly advanced astronomy throughout Europe. He also was something like a fortune teller. Galileo didn't just believe in astrology, he practiced it, conducting it for wealthy clients and taught it to medical students. If students at the University of Purdue had taken the MCAT, Galileo would have included a question of whether or not a Leo should have dated a Gemini. Galileo wasn't alone in keeping up on his signs. His contemporaries, Johannes Kepler, conducted his own astrology studies. Though more reluctant, he called people who believed in astrology fatheads.
I'm sure it's surprising to know that many of these men who were men of science were not just merely men of science, but they were men who were involved in the occult.
Isaac Newton thought alchemy was the future. Isaac Newton, beneath his wig, a brain buzzing about was alchemy. John Maynard called Isaac Newton, 1642 to 1726, the last of the great magicians, with good reason. Newton spent half his life obsessed with alchemy, the transformative magic most frequently associated with turning different metals into gold. To make things even more complicated, in 1696, Newton became warden of the mint, and he became the master of the mint in 1700. The Royal Mint, of course, makes the coins for the entire United Kingdom, which was formed in 1707, 7 years into Newton's appointment. To be clear, an alchemist was a person in charge of making all of the money.
Could a man who is involved in the occult be trusted to give us the truth about the nature of the world in which we live? So
Newton wasn't the only respected mind who had visions of divining into gold coins. Robert Boyle is considered the father of chemistry. He dabbled in alchemy as well. He was so committed to the alchemical cause that he fought to make alchemy legal. Unfortunately, today, you can only find the Philosopher's Stone in the British subtitle of the first Harry Potter's book, because Harry Potter was a witch, and apparently so was Isaac Newton. Tycho Brahe made everyone believe that he was a sorcerer.
Then, of course, there's Tycho Brahe. And like Newton and also like Galileo, Brahe was interested in the stars and astrology.
Tycho Brahe, sorcerer. Tycho Brahe, 1546 to 1601, created his own model of the universe. He cataloged more than 1,000 stars. He also convinced everyone he was a sorcerer. He did so from a unique perch of his private sorcerer's island, known in England as Vienne. Fantastically wealthy, Brahe built multiple observatories, had a squad of astronomical assistants, and used tiny robots to convince the locals that he had magical powers. It didn't hurt that he partied hard, had his nose partly sliced off in a duel, and got his pet moose drunk at parties. But he didn't just hoodwink the public into believing he was magical. He believed it too. He publicly lectured against anyone who believed astrology was fake, and he also believed alchemy was the future for mystical discoveries. Brahe even became so synonymous with magic that an entire calendar of magical days was made in his honor, and his name was slapped onto it to give it magical credibility. In the Western world, many grew up in an educational system which, for the most part, has regarded the development of science and knowledge as largely the product of some vague concept of Judeo-Christian belief system. This generic idea that it is the Christianized nations of Europe and their colonized offshoots which, because they had a theistic foundation which taught that a rational creator made the world in an orderly way, enjoyed an intellectual climate most preferable to scientific study and development, producing such great scientific minds, or so-called scientific minds, as Isaac Newton, Galileo, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, etc. All of these genius folks we learn about in school. However, this worldview does not hold up to a decent scrutiny of history of scientific thinking. Not surprisingly, it seems that Christian culture today that is the most blind to the matter, preferring to cling to the mythology about Christian roots of science, because it plays such a large role in the current approach to Christian apologetics. In familiar subjects such as creationism, where so many geologists and astronomers turn to in hopes of vindicating the Genesis account. But when we listen to the secular historians expound upon things that pertain to the development of the fuller picture of what really happened, especially if you're willing to lay down all of your rose-colored glasses about Christian slanted views of scientific history in Europe, America, and the West, we will see that real science is really based in alchemy and the Kabbalah. It traces back, rather than to Christian roots, it traces back to occult mystic schools rooted in what they prefer to be a religion of scientism. But there is another strain of occultism which plays hugely significant role in the progression of scientism. And that strain was the introduction of Hermetic philosophy into Europe towards the beginning of what we now know as the Renaissance. The figure of Hermes sheds an incredible amount of light on how ancient esoteric teachings penetrated Europe and gave rise to the period known as the Renaissance of Enlightenment, and finally scientific and industrial revolutions. It is rather astounding to learn just how highly regarded the figure of Hermes Trismegistus was in the European Renaissance. He was considered by scholars, and even St. Thomas Aquinas, to be just as literal a figure in history, but a pagan Egyptian priest who somehow, apparently because he was believed to be more or less a contemporary of Moses, was viewed as a sort of quasi-patriarch figure. They really elevated him essentially to the same status as Moses or Abraham. So here we have a figure, Hermes, the quintessential magistus, this pagan magician from antiquity who somehow comes to receive incredible favor treatment by Europe Christian theologians and scholars alongside Europeans who, of course, much more deeply attracted to the occult elements of this tradition. And so in the 15th century, we have Italian scholars, a Catholic priest, Marsilio Ficini, who had been commissioned by a wealthy Medici family to translate the works of Plato. And yet, when the Medici family suddenly came into possession of the Greek manuscript said to be the writings of the magnificent Hermes, Ficino was ordered to hold his work on Plato and translate the Hermetic text with utmost priority. The result was the work known thereafter as Corpus Hermeticum, and this volume, along with other works such as Asclepius, began to spread around Europe among scholars and Renaissance thinking. Being regarded quite harmoniously with an increasing popularity of the Kabbalah's writing, and rightfully so, since they were derived from the same occult origins, all of which quite plainly was fairly inseparable from the spread of Copernicanism. While the Corpus Hermeticum contained a fair amount of more philosophical ideological content, it also contained descriptions of outright occult rituals, such as how to summon astral energies down from above into stone idols and animate them, and so it is quite deserving of the categorization of witchcraft. One prominent figure within the rise of Copernicanism, whose Hermetic influence have been thoroughly documented and well-traveled figure of, is Giovanni Bruno, who first proposed that the stars are distant suns, and he was killed because he was burned at the stake for this. Francis Yates, a 20th century historian who specialized in Renaissance history, wrote an entire book on the title, Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic Tradition, which you can read online for free right now.
The sun is an ordinary, even a mediocre star. Our ancestors worshipped the sun and they were far from foolish. It makes good sense to revere the sun and the stars because we are their children.
Copernicus himself referred to Hermes in a quote about the sun. In the middle of all sits the sun enthroned. In the most beautiful temple could we place the luminary in any better position from which he can illuminate the whole at once. He is rightly called the lamp, the mind, the ruler of the universe. Hermes Trismegistus named him the visible God. Sophocles, Electra calls him the all-seeing. So the sun sits as upon a royal throne, ruling his children, the planets, which circle around him. Isaac Newton is well known to have been an alchemist and studier of Kabbalah, having endeavored to translate the emerald tablets of alchemy, but he too was a student of Corpus Hermeticum. So we have Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, Robert Boyle, Isaac Newton, all heavily influenced by Hermeticism, and of course, Francis Bacon as well, whose writings would seem eventually to inspire the creation of the first official institution of the study of science in the Royal Society. So essentially, our understanding of the cosmos has been taught to us by 15th and 16th century magic men who wore wigs, had wild parties, studied astrology, hermetic magic, witchcraft, and defiled themselves with necromancy, speaking to the dead in seances, and also defiled the teachings of the church. We are reminded of the scripture that tells us that we should not even tolerate a witch or a warlock or wizards among us, since witches are the sons and daughters of perdition. Not only do they deceive themselves, but they deceive others and defile us through their pernicious ways. Worshipping demons, magic will all lead to hell. Exodus chapter 22 verse 18 tells us, "Do not allow a sorcerer or a witch to live," but we have allowed them to hijack and warp the very perception that we have about the world and even heaven itself. Sorcery uses spells, divination, and speaking to spirits, and is clearly taught against in the Bible. For example, 2 Chronicles chapter 33 verse 6, King Manasseh is condemned for his many evil practices, including sorcery. In his burning of his sons as an offering to the valley of Hinnom, God condemns him. He used the burning of his sons to appease the fortune tellers and the omens and the sorcerers. This sin provoked God to anger. The Apostle Paul lists sorcery as one of the sinful practices that mark the lives of unbelievers. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, and strife. All of these I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. Interestingly enough, the New Testament in the Greek translates the word sorcery as pharmakia, where we get our word pharmacy from. In Paul's day, the word primarily meant dealing in poison or drug use, or even alchemy. Amulets and conjuring the power of the occult was a common practice that was practiced among Isaac Newton, among Ty Brahe, and among a list of all of the 14th, 15th, and 16th century scientists, or so-called scientists. Can we really trust that today our educational system is as pure as we believe it is? Or has our educational system been hijacked by men of magic? It is no question that NASA today is practicing deception. The very word NASA itself means to deceive.
Brahe called himself the great sorcerer. So he wanted everyone to know that he was a sorcerer. His sorcery and also his astrology was the things that we lean upon in order to build our construct today of the heliocentric world. But can we say that we really trust these people to be the people to lead us into the scientific era, an era of rationality? And so the occultists have been the ones to lead us into this new brave world of science. And most of the science that they have done is still questionable and still never been proven. We still have pictures and CGI from NASA. We've never seen the shape of the Earth. We've never even seen the core of the Earth. And there's a number of other things like gravity that we've never discovered. So you let me know what you think about this. You know, of course, you might actually believe that it's pretty good to be led by sorcerers. It's up to you. Like, subscribe, or don't. But remember, until next time, that Jesus is the light of the world, and the truth shall set you free.